Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar, Where to Begin Scaling Customer Support in a New Market. I'm thrilled today to be joined by Erica Ocampo, U.S. Director of Customer Operations at Requireii. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. As you all know, I'm Sheridan Ganger with HelpShift. And this is our 6th webinar in our series, so we're excited to have Erica from Requireii join us. I know that you guys are expecting another gaming company, so we're thrilled to be venturing into a new market. This is being recorded. It's a live Google Hangout. We're here in sunny San Francisco. Just a reminder that we want to encourage everybody to partake in this webinar, so we have our Twitter experts working in the background, so please use the hashtag AskHelpShift, and we will be sure to answer all of your questions and comments throughout the webinar. Did I miss anything?
No, I think you got it all covered.
Awesome. So Erica, before we begin, why don't you provide our audience a little bit about yourself and your background and a little bit about Requireii to kind of set the stage?
Sure. So my background has always been in customer experience, hasn't always been in mobile. So I had started off actually my customer experience career at Trulia. As a customer support agent, so I've actually been there.
Been in the weeds.
Yes,
yeah,
definitely, in the trenches. Just really grew from there to lead a team of customer support and customer success. And then kind of that new wave of mobile and video was the big up and coming thing. So I decided to leave Trulia and join a startup called Quick, which is asynchronous video, mobile streaming, and video chat. And so, you know, very soon after joining Quick, we were acquired by a company called Skype, which is then now later known as some of Skype's product offerings like video chat, video messaging. And so shortly after that, we were acquired by Microsoft, which is where I just previously left to join Requireii. I thought it was great to just come back to the things I love to do, which is building operations and building teams for another kind of scrappy startup. And Requireii is a C2C marketplace where buyers and sellers can come and transact on a one-to-one level. So, we saw this need from kind of our grassroots that happened in Japan just a year earlier from launch, that users and customers really like to find a place to sell items, buy items, secondhand and uncommon goods. So, we just launched last year around this time. So we're anniversarying 1 year already.
Happy anniversary.
Thanks, going strong. And really impressed to see what our customers are doing with our platform today.
Awesome. We're thrilled to have you here to provide us some insight into everything that you just outlined. So first question, why did Requireii decide to take this kind of mobile first approach?
So we, like I said earlier, our grassroots are really in Japan. So we were founded by a group of gamers, which is, there's your segue there. A couple of guys who really know what it was like to bring everyday aspects into an audience that's mostly thumbs, right? So that small screen experience, the need for a place to buy and sell, the need to kind of have that sort of Craigslist feel with an even transaction kind of thing like that. It didn't necessarily have to target, you don't have to open up an entire shop to sell a designer handbag. And so with that, we had really great critical mass behind our community in Japan that, they were sort of inspired to come to the US and expand operations. And since then, we've experienced some really quick growth.
So was there any pushback from anybody on the team when they said, hey guys, we're taking the kind of that mobile first approach and kind of leaving the land of desktop behind?
I don't think so. There was absolutely, with the team, was everybody on board. And I think because of that kind of prior gaming background from our founders that, it was sort of an expertise already. Definitely from our users, everyone was on board. I think that we really nailed it with the audience that we were aiming. Target audience kind of jumped on board, and, we were growing so fast we couldn't keep up. So definitely, I think when you target sort of a staff that already is excited about mobile, you won't get much resistance there.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. So do you think that the customer journey has shifted or changed with this kind of evolving tools and technologies specifically for mobile apps?
I think yes. So the customer journey I think of end to end. I know that we always like to talk most relevantly about support. But in sort of that end-to-end, customer journey, you think about where you come in to help. You want to make sure that it's seamless and that your product is very intuitive. Particularly for Mercari, support is within the customer journey, and we're talking about people's money here. So you want to be where your customers are and when they need you immediately, to not disrupt that service or that journey or the seamless sort of response that you would need. You don't want people to exit your product to find you, right? You don't want them to go to a website or Google your phone number or try and find an email to reach you. So it definitely has changed. It definitely has evolved. I think that more products and companies are considerate of how your customer needs to reach you, because you're never going to create a flawless product off the bat.
Technology is not always our friend. So being able to connect with your customer on that channel within an app, it definitely keeps them going down that journey of success and ultimately happiness, so that they won't remove your app. So great insight there.
Yeah.
So that said, why do you think companies are underinvesting and underestimating in mobile right now?
I think that it really sort of depends on the business need. So when we talk about underinvesting and underestimating, I think that companies don't necessarily need to be mobile-centric or mobile-focused, but they do need to have some sort of presence. So I think about sort of mobile being present on the consumer side, right? I think there's always going to be a need for desktop, particularly on enterprise, right? So there's kind of that sort of divide there, and that's sort of happening. But I think that you see more and more companies kind of jumping on board with these things when it comes to sort of servicing, at least servicing on mobile. There's got to be some way to reach you on a small screen device, even if you are a purely product.
Got it. Great insight. So let's talk about your team. You're new to Mercari, you're building out your operations and support team. So what are they focused on, high level and granularly, on meeting the needs of your mobile customer?
So my team in particular, if I can just kind of bring this out into sort of a global statement.
You can paint the picture for the audience. Yeah,
sure, absolutely. So when we talk about what our product is aimed to do, it is aimed to bring an everyday activity into a small screen experience. And so we work as a support team on our customer experience side with our product team.
It has to be a happy marriage, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And I think that sometimes that kind of gets underutilized. I think that there's a lot that a customer support and or customer operations team are laser focused on what they're doing, which is mostly reactive. And a product team, which is really laser focused on what they're doing, which is mostly proactive. What's the next big thing going to be? What are we going to release for our users? But who ultimately brings those ideas together? It's definitely your front line. It's definitely your customers, right? Who gives you those ideas to help evolve your product. So if we're talking about meeting the needs of our mobile customers, we're talking about some of the things that we get reactively from our feedback requests. We've introduced a product feedback loop with our product team to be able to let them know, hey, we received X amount of feedback based off of this particular feature. What can we do to improve that behavior so that we can proactively improve the product and, receive fewer reactive needs for response. So I think that needs to be secular, and I think that we should always have those doors open. I know that's always difficult. I think it's easier for people like the likes of us who are in these kind of small, scrappy startups to be able to get up out of your seat, walk over to your head of product and say, we need to change this and this is why. Now, of course, it's going to be more complicated for bigger companies, but I think that a process needs to be written around it every time. And that's probably one of the key takeaways that I would recommend.
Having a process.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'm going to throw one that's not kind of in kind of our general scope of questions, but how has being able to intercept that feedback kind of deflected Mercari getting negative reviews on the App Store?
I think that, and that's kind of that line between proactive and reactive, right? So you do what you can for your customers. You tell them, you know, you've spoken and we've heard, and we've done something about it. So one of the goals that you need to have, especially in the customer operations, is reducing the sort of volume, right? And so if you see it and if you're experiencing it yourself, because you should always be a user of your product.
Absolutely.
It's going to be sort of easier for you to be able to deflect the sort of feedback, save a lot of money,
yes,
and save face for your brand.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So digging into that a little bit more, what are kind of the KPIs that your team's measured on, and how are you kind of benchmarking that line of customer support success?
So I think we always got to kind of bring it down to basics when we talk about our KPIs, because there's so many activities that you do that surround customer operations. For me in particular, I have you know, 3 branches of my team, which is risk moderation and customer experience. And so when we talk about sort of KPIs to help measure you and cue you up for success, we got to start with the basics, which is your obvious, you know, handling time, response time, and first contact resolution. The analytics behind that is always going to tell you how to forecast what you need to do for the future, right?
Pay attention to those analytics.
Exactly. And so, you know, for me, particularly on the day-to-day mechanistic behaviors of what we do in customer support, I definitely like to kind of stick to those, you know, roots for numbers. I aggregate reports from HelpShift almost daily to be able to kind of gauge that. Now, based off of that, that's when you can get really creative with what you do in your operation. And so for me, one of the things that I did at Skype that I hope to kind of bring over to Mercari is that, you know, we want to be really present on the social side. I think that that's sort of the new wave of customer service. So, you know, you don't just pick up a phone and call a toll-free number. You don't just, you know, pop up a chat window to customer service. You don't just email, even though these are things that we do on our everyday mechanistic moves. Today, if something's broken, you will just go to Twitter and you will bitch. And you'll see who else is on your boat. And for that, I think to be able to represent your brand correctly, align with your marketing plans, align with, you know, your goals, you've got to have social presence on the support side. You know, there's tons you can say about promotions for your brand, promotions for your product, but you still need to have somebody on standby there to answer a support question, especially if it can fulfill a one-to-many need.
Absolutely, and also including that personalized piece, right? When people think customer support, they think, you know, automated systems, not connecting to a human, and you know, being able to whether, you know, connect in-app and chat with an agent, or you know, receive that feedback across social media, kind of makes that customer feel like, wow, they actually value me as a person rather than a user of that app. So great insights there. So you're busy. How are you guys keeping pace with the growth? I know you're scaling your team and you're including kind of aligning all those processes, but any other kind of key takeaways for our audience to kind of, you know, stay above the waterline in terms of that fast growth?
Sure, yeah, no, I cannot say enough about automations, about determining and documenting your process. So when we started at Mercari, day one we launched and we were just sitting there waiting for somebody to come and reach us, right? Like, does anyone have a problem? Is somebody going to meet us? And, you know, it took a while. It took a while to get that traction. And when it hit, it hit really hard. And so one of sort of the practices I take along with me and every other position that I've held is to make sure that you determine what your process is going to be. You foresee what's coming to you. So one of the things that I like to do is really audit your user journey. And I can't stress this enough. I tell people this all the time, is that, well, I first always ask people, when was the last time you signed up for your own product, right? Probably when you first started, yeah. Probably before you started, when you were a user, before you were an employee. And how many iterations has that gone through since you signed up, right? I remember, you know, before I started with Mercari, I think about that sort of journey from the past, and I think about the last time I signed up for a Skype account, and that was before I was even hired, right? And so going through that journey again, 4 years later, completely different. And if I was a user, I would be completely confused. And because I, was a user already, it was easy for me. So when you go back into what it is that you do and how it is you service your customers, think about what it's like to really put yourself in their shoes. Put yourself in their shoes as they are a new user today, not when you were a new user last year. Yeah. And so, because when you do that, I guarantee you'll be confused. Yeah. Because you're like, what the heck? This is not how it was when I signed up 4 years ago. And so, to be able to do that, I think is something that really will keep your finger to the pulse of what you need to do. And in scaling your customer service, to be able to document and walk through that and know that, not just by documenting it, but also memorizing what it is that you do, because you need to be able to teach that. So if you have, and this happens to everybody, you have a certain behavior that you're used to on a day-to-day, and all of a sudden your marketing team puts out a campaign that's like, come do this, you're gonna do this, and you're gonna get a bunch of free stuff, nobody else knows, nobody on your customer support team knows, then all of a sudden you get an influx of volume, right? Because your promotional code doesn't work and your marketing campaign said it would. And so you will get an influx of volume. And what do you need very quickly? If you already have a well-oiled machine, you might need to staff up and very quickly. So who's going to teach all these people how to do this day-to-day mechanistic work? Your manual, your documented process will do that for you. And then you can scale down when everything's settled down. So so when I think about scaling, you think about what sort of things you need to document and teach out. On top of that, you also should think about what sort of tools that you have. I know that I've been there when you don't have many resources. I've been there when you can't make changes very quickly because there are just other things that prioritize over what you need to do. And so think about automations, what it is that you can do within your own tools.
Streamlining.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that I have had a lot of reduction in average handling time with a lot of the automations that I set in HelpShift, particularly with being able to show a customer, show them to where they need to get to, and for their problems to be answered immediately with some sort of automation that your team might not even see. And then to be able to measure the performance of that automation, to know that how many actual workload tickets you've been able to deflect because of the content that you've written and provided.
Awesome. That leads me into my next question. Like, as you said, you guys are on the front lines of your customer. Mm-hmm. And being in this kind of mobile first space, how have you seen kind of the evolution of the modern customer in terms of what they expect from your customer support team?
I think, so there's sort of two things there. One is that there is this evolution of the modern customer, and it has everything to do with mobile. And another thing is that just sort of this new trend is that your service as a customer operations team has everything to do with your brand, right?
Yes.
So it wasn't always like that, right? When people were building perfect products, and you never would see who it is that is having a problem because people didn't have problems. And now it's hand in hand, it's intertwined. If you don't put out a perfect product, you will definitely hear from your customers. And if you hear from your customers and you give them an answer that is probably right by your policy and right by your process, but not what they want to hear, you're
not delivering your brand promise.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly. So, so I think the expectations are a bit higher. I think because there's more options out there, you don't have a lot of wiggle room for forgiveness. And so to be able to kind of align that strategy with what the new expectations are, that is an optimal small screen experience and almost perfect answers that you need to give out. And even if they don't align with your policy, there's got to be some wiggle room there to be able to show face for your brand. Is definitely sort of a challenge, I think, today for me, and I think for a lot of people as well, because now it's not just you fixing problems, it's you fixing problems and or trying to fix problems and representing your brand and being able to bring that feedback loop back to your product team to improve the product. So you can face issues where you're telling a bunch of people, I'm sorry, we don't support it, but we definitely took back your feedback and we'll see what our engineering team can do.
And sometimes being transparent is just what your customer wants, right? They use your app, they've spent a long time in it, they just want to feel that they're a part of kind of the larger experience, the larger strategy at hand. So being able to say, we know something's wrong, we're working at fixing it. They're like, okay, they're not ignoring me, they're not deflecting the problem, they've acknowledged the problem, and they know that as a valued customer, they're going to work really hard to get that problem fixed.
Absolutely. So we have a lot of loyal users there. So, there are people that have been really patient with sort of, product offerings that we don't support yet that they'd like to see because they've seen it in competitors or they just have really good ideas.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Let's shift and talk about kind of educating the user. You talked a little bit about automations, which was fantastic, but how are you providing kind of that educational content to your users to be able to kind of self-serve and be able to kind of get their answers or their questions answered more quickly rather than reaching out to an agent?
So there's sort of two things there as well. One is educating your users within your product offering and educating your users within support. So a lot of times, and we know this as support people, you hear from your users at a point where they're just really angry, right? People are just angry. Like
something broke, something's not working, I'm not getting what I need.
Exactly. How many times do people actually reach out to you and say, you're doing a good job? Which is not very often, right? So you got to get behind that and combat that by being proactive. And support, so the support presence can be proactive, but it can't always be seen. So we work really closely with product to be able to give that sort of tutorial, right? So we're, is it in coach marks? Is it in a brief onboarding tutorial? Because if you don't educate them right on onboarding, you're more than likely going to churn, right? And so, it's not something that we're completely responsible for, but we're definitely participative in is helping the product team show users how they can use this product the right way. Now on the support side, obviously for us, proactive is, did you read our content before you came to us? Is it there for you? Is it visible? Do we put it in a place where you can find it easily? And that's stuff that you need to kind of work on in iterations. Today, we have our FAQs that are completely visible in our Help Center. We make our Help Center sort of a hub for service. Yeah. And so, we're able to measure the performance of our FAQs, luckily, because, in our Help Shift analytics, we get to see views and who has favored our actual content. And we get to work off of that, right? If things are not favored, then maybe we should work on kind of doing another iteration of that content. So sort of that super proactive and proactive, and then sort of that reactive we've already got nailed, is just really how we're aiming to educate our users. On top of that, we do want to involve other teams to align with us, like marketing, for sort of campaign emails that could involve sort of tutorials, perhaps at some point do instructional videos, but just to make sure that that's sort of seamless within the app.
Awesome, great insights, Erica. So as we know, and I think you touched on this a little bit earlier, is that friction arises when you're managing multiple tickets and you have people kind of scrambling to get all the questions answered. How are you and requireii trying to kind of decimate that friction in terms of as you're getting more support needs from your users?
So right now we try to staff as best we can to be able to do, like I said, sort of that mechanistic work, right? And being able to kind of drive that volume down, being able to kind of, streamline our processes internally will give, particularly my staff, a better chance at being creative with what we're going to do proactively. So the big goal here is to not always be hot button reactive. And that's where the friction really is, right? People are running around, heads cut, like chickens with their heads cut off. Being able to, there's one thing to resolve everyday issues, but there's one thing if there's a bug or something that will completely disrupt a user's experience. And so to be able to kind of, like I said, streamline these processes that we're very much used to in a mechanistic manner, will then open up a chance to be really creative in sort of what we're going to do proactively to be able to alleviate that for the next time. There's always got to be that first time for you to do the next time. You can't avoid everything.
You can't skip anything in between as well.
Absolutely.
So how are you really kind of simplifying the kind of, as you said, the kind of the user journey in your app to make it a very easy experience for them, make it fun for them, and again, when they do run into a problem, provide them the easiest way to connect with support?
So right now, so there's two things there as well. So
like to.
Yeah,
So the theme of today.
Yeah.
2 answers. We like that.
Yeah. So let's talk about, what's going to make it easy, right? There's no other way for our product team to really work on some of these improvements without knowing what it is that our customers are having problems with today. And so we want to simplify actual usage of the app. I think that's kind of a big deal for especially all the UI people out there, to be able to know that you can go end to end without needing support. And today, so today Mercari is actually part of, or the support team is part of the actual end-to-end journey. So we need to simplify that by taking us out of that, right? Mm-hmm. So you, for example, cannot cancel a transaction without my support team being involved in this.
Interesting.
Yeah, so does it mean that we should introduce something like self-cancellation? Probably. But how are we going to do that? We need to see what it is that people are having problems with, how it is that we can streamline the process, simplify it, and protect our company and protect our users. Yeah. And then, on top of that, when we use HelpShift, we have a lot of ways that we can actually be able to customize where it is that we're visible, right? So, working with the team here, we can put a support link anywhere in the app, and it'll go anywhere we want it to go. It doesn't always have to be this one single help center, go to customer service kind of thing in your brick and mortar experience.
Nothing clunky.
Yeah. So like in your brick and mortar experience, there's like 12 checkout lines and one customer service booth, and you can't actually do a return at one of your 12 checkout lines. You got to wait in a line for your customer service booth, and that's how
we've all been there.
Yeah, and that's how Mercari's modeled today. We do see the need to kind of bring more exposure to our service team, but we also want to be able to, before doing that, streamline the actual end-to-end journey before we open up a floodgate. Because when we streamline it, we probably won't be seeing this volume that we would expect to if we didn't actually improve the product before we decided to expose ourselves to our customers.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you've talked a lot about this customer journey and auditing the customer journey and streamlining and simplifying the process. So now that you've done that, you have a lot of happy customers. How are you taking those happy customers and kind of having them be advocates for your brand? You talk a lot about the brand, delivering the brand promise. So you have a lot of people out there kind of speaking the Mercari word. How is support kind of involved in that?
So right now, our customers, I think that we run a really great product in that our customers are the product. So at the end of the day, our core product is that we are a community. So for customer support to be able to educate users in a way that is helpful, that has actually resolved the issues for people, it just takes that one person to be able to actually go out and educate the others, right? And so
I call it the positive domino effect.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And because they're like, hey, I've gone through that before. You just have to do this, right? And I think that fortunately, because of the nature of our product, that's how information is being distributed. So for us to be able to do that, and then get behind sort of a community following, and then be able to kind of execute a really good strategy for support on social, it just kind of brings it all together. So it's obviously not going to be the same for every product because not every product is a community. But for us, that's how it works. Now, if you just hit the right person who just happens to be that person that's an evangelist, because we've done it to customers who are no longer our customers as well. We
have those.
We've had that same sort of following with people who are dissatisfied with our service and product and have said something about it, and have had a following around it as well. It's not always pretty, but it just takes that one person to be able to get. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I know that we're coming up to our half-hour mark here, and Erica, I know I've learned a lot. This has been so useful for me as a marketer, so I'm taking a lot of this information and thinking about how I can work with other parts of our organization. Do you have any other feedback for the audience? Any sort of key tips or maybe per se homework or suggestions for people that are maybe thinking about moving into this kind of mobile-first market?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a few. I kind of mentioned a few earlier. So I think that what's relevant to mobile is that, again, audit your user journey. especially with this small screen experience, it's not that easy to make changes very quickly. So these things need to be planned out. I know that, you know, to be able to do that and contribute to what it is that your product team needs from you is something that can be valuable in the long run. It's always something where, especially people who are in customer service, customer support, need to remind their leaders that we are the only group of people that costs money. Every other contributor in a company makes money for a company. You know, you make money because you bring back users. You know, people, engineers, they make money just with their hands. Everybody makes money except for us. We cost money, we're a cost center. And so what is it that we need to do to reduce that cost? You know, we need to make sure that we document our processes so that when we do scale out, we can scale out very quickly or temporarily in a spike. You know, we need to be able to bring that product feedback back to our product team because we know what our customers are asking for, and we know how we can make their lives easier and our jobs easier, to be honest. And always just replicate and reproduce your onboarding. Know what you want to do on a proactive side, because I think we get really caught up in what happens to be reactive.
Yes.
That there's a ton we can do to be proactive on helping our customers. And it doesn't have to be exclusive to the support site. It can be very much participative in the entire product offering altogether.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for joining us. I had a wonderful time hearing from Erica and her experiences at Requireii. We hope the audience enjoyed it as well. If you maybe came in late or you have a colleague that missed this, we will be posting it up on our YouTube channel as well as our blog. So wait for that. And we look forward to seeing you at the next HelpShift webinar. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.